Hello, it's Emma Jo here from Lavinia Stamps, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make this.
A rather fetching Easter card with 3 bouncy hares, 1 fabulous top hat and spring.
Enough chat from me. Come on, let's go and see how it's done.
So the first thing we're going to do is create a background. So I'm using DL Multifarious card and Elements Ink Blue Atoll and a size 9 stencil brush. And I'm just barely putting any ink on that brush. There's a piece of paper off shot that I'm basically taking the majority of the ink off until I'm happy that it's pale enough that I can build it up with. Does that make sense to you? I hope so. And I've always thought that if you start in the corners, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit darker up there, because actually you probably want that. And it'll look a bit like you meant to make it look like a frame. That's my plan, and I'm sticking with it. There we go. So we've got blue atoll over the majority of it. Now we're going to stamp the hat using VersaFine Claire Nocturne and the topper stamp. And of course I'm stamping the hat upside down, quite low down actually, on that card. So we're going to have to ground it, otherwise it's just floating in midair. So I'm going to rip a piece of multifarious card that I'd made a mark on and didn't want it anymore. Anyway, and I'm using some Elements Ink Mermaid, and I'm just brushing behind because I tend to think anything in the distance tends to take on a sort of bluish tone. So that's what I've gone with. And my next one, in case you didn't realise, is going to be green sleeves. Just using the same bit of card to create the same feeling. Now, if you need to, add some blue mermaid or green sleeves up into the back of the other one. By that I mean the other hills behind, and a little bit of mermaid on the green sleeves in front, and it gives this lovely grounding effect. Yeah, nearly there anyway. Creating a mask. What's this all about? Well, I can tell you. It's about stamping up that top hat, again, cutting it out and using it as a mask so that I can stamp my whimsical hares so that they look like they're coming out of that hat. Now, I'm not cutting all the intricate details out. I'm just giving myself a basic shape so that I can get them coming out of that rim. You could use masking papers. In fact, I probably would have preferred it. But this is what I had to hand. That's what I used. There's your whimsical hares stamp, and I'm choosing the one that's standing on his hind legs to go right in the middle of that hat. And don't forget, I've got that mask over it so that it looks like he's coming out of the hat. Now, the other one I'm using is the one that looks like it's running and jumping. And it's the same stamp used to do 2 things. So on this side, he's jumping out of the hat. And the other side, he's jumping in. Fab. If you've got any gaps, don't fret. You can always fill them in with a black Posca pen. Now, I'm using a stencil here just to add some texture to the ground. And this is the pebble stencil. And I've used a little bit of graphite ink, Elements Ink Graphite. Now, sometimes if you take the lid off, there's a little bit of ink in the top of the lid, which is fab. If you add a bit of water to it, we're going to use that, like watercolours, to colour in the top hat. And I'm using the watercolour brush from set 1. It's one of the larger ones. And I'm not worrying that there's quite a lot of water in this because I'm slowly going to build up this colour. Now, you will notice that that pink, confetti pink, will slowly come to life on the page as we build up the colour. Fab. And I've literally just done it down the whiter stripes on the outside of the lacing and a bit of the hat brim as well. Now, I think pretty soon, as I build it up, there you are. Can you start to see that pink? Fab, isn't it? Beautiful colours, these. Very full of the joys of spring. Okay, so I'm now using a bit of sunburst and I'm just dotting it around, and you can see that those little bits of yellow, they just bring the pink. They just make the colours pop. It's fab. And I've got Elements Ink Blue Atoll. Now that's going in those stripes on either side of the lacing, the darker stripes. And I'm probably going to use a bit, yes I am, on the hat ribbon as well. Just little bits of it. It's very therapeutic, this. You can just add a little, and if there's too much colour in one place, just put some water on your brush and lift it off with your brush. Right, I am using some of the colour that's in the lid and splattering some Blue Atoll in and around the sky. And I think I'm going to do it with some Sundance too. Yep. Just flicking it a bit like you would a cigarette. For those of you that have smoked, or for those of you that have pretended to as children too. So I'm adding some Sundance just behind the hares. Now this makes them pop, but it also gives the illusion of magic happening inside that hat. And that's fab, that's what we're going for. Just flick it out, and as you do that, it will move the Elements Blue Atoll behind it that we had, and it will look like we meant it to happen, which of course we did. And I'm flicking some more of that. I think that's confetti went there. Now this is a little bit of Elements Ink graphite with some water, and now I've moved on to a black Posca pen, and I'm literally flicking with my paintbrush to give myself a bit of a grassy effect around that hat. Now this is my old favourite, the glittery yellow Posca pen. Nothing like a little bit of glitter. Believe me, there will be some more. But just those little orbs. Fab. Now if you don't want your hairs to be... Oh look, there's mine. There's my hairs. If you don't want your hairs to be black, then I've just used a little bit of white Posca to give myself a bit of highlight. Not my hair, the hairs on the page. Dear me. Please ignore the head that's obviously too engrossed and getting too close to the paper. And if you don't like it, remember, just blot it off while it's still wet. Add some highlights with your glittery yellow Posca pen as well. Remember, those hairs are jumping out of magic. Now I've got that apple green Posca pen, and it's apple green. And again, I'm flicking up like I'm making grass. Just little strokes. Sometimes they remind me a bit of how we used to do maps, you know, like a straight line and horizontal line and then 3 vertical lines sticking out for grass. There we go. The hat is well and truly grounded. So we're going to add some Posca details. Now, what on earth do I mean by this? Well, there's the apple green again, and I'm going along the hat ribbon. Just remember, you don't have to do a straight, complete line. You could do half of it apple green and the other bit aqua green. It just makes it look more alive, like the light is hitting it and changing the colour. It's fabulous when you do things like that. I've just added a little bit of red Posca pen at the top of the pinker bands, just to make them pop a little bit more with a little bit more depth. Adding some water to it. There we go. Tree top. What? What tree? Aha. This, my friends, is the Tree of Hope stamp. And we're going to use Versifying Clay Warm Breeze. I've stamped it up. And I have no idea what I'm doing by the looks of it. Oh, there we go. There's my glasses. Proof it's me. And I'm just using the top. And I fancied a little bit of blossom and some leaves. So let's do that. Leaves and blossom. So I'm using Versifying Clay Morning Mist. And I'm just stamping the mini maple stamp. Here, there and everywhere, but not too much, she says, as she watches herself do. No, stopped. Well done. Good girl. And I'm just using the mini flowers as well. Now, I know you might think, why on earth has she done it in grey? I'll tell you for why. I've done it because I'm going in with a Posca. Hurrah! And I'm using the Posca white to go after the flowers, and the Posca pen pink, and also apple green for the leaves. And add a few dots along the way. You know, it's got to look light and airy and fluffy and spring-like. Edge work. Hoo-hee. Aha. Size 9 stencil brush. Elements Ink Mermaid. In at the corners. And we're just going around the edges. And you know what I do to do this? I imagine that I'm actually trying to put the ink on the, as you can see, I do it anyway, on the craft mat outside of the card itself. And that makes a much more subtle edge. Adding a little bit of Posca pen white to those orbs that I did earlier. Fab. And I think I've also given the hare's eyes. That was clever. Now I'm dotting along the grass because, as I've said before, dots can make all the difference. Love it. So I'm using the yellow Posca and doing a pretty similar thing with more dots. Now, you may have seen my camera appear there, my phone. Basically, sometimes I think when you're halfway through something, it helps to take a photograph of it and look at it through the eyes of the lens. And you get a completely different perspective. And you can see where you want to rebalance things or put something there because it needs it. I do that. Worth a go. Anyway, back in with a pebble stencil. And I'm using size 9 stencil brush. And that'll be a bit of mermaid. Oh, no, it isn't. It's denim blue. Good old denim blue. Right along the edges. So we end up with some finishing touches now. So that's the red Posca pen again, just adding a little bit more. You see, I took a photo and thought, needs a bit more there. Now, using my stickles and the end of a paintbrush, I am just daubing it about. I had a bit of a splurge and I didn't want to waste it, so that's what I've done. I could tell you that it actually gives me so much more control. I'd be fibbing. It was really just a splurge on the craft mat. Well, waste not, want not. So I'm taking that magic up into the tree. Oh, that's brave. After a splurge. Gosh, Emma Jo, I didn't realise you were this brave. So I'm just adding more dots, and it's the Stickles Icicle. And my friends, you have done it. A wonderful little spring-like Easter card. Well done.
Well, do you know what? I thoroughly enjoyed making that card. I just love the sense of fun that comes out of this new collection from Lavinia Stamps. The top hat, the hearts. You could go so many ways with it. You could go the steampunk route, but if you're like me, you could see it as joyful and carnival and just want to flood it with colour. That's what I've gone for here. So I think it's a cracking little Easter card. Don't know about you. Lots of glitter on it. Let's see if I can put it in front of my face, you might see better. It's rather lovely, full of energy, full of magic. A little bit of Lavinia magic. Thank you for coming along and having a go with me. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. If you have any comments you'd like to make about this craft, please pop them in the post below and I will do my very best to get back in touch with you as soon as I can. You take care and I'll see you next time. Bye.